Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Gaming Your Own Way. My name is Chad, and today we are going to rank all of the Eldritch invocations inside of Baldur's Gate 3 for the Warlock class. It's worth noting that for this ranking video, we are only going to consider the base Warlock class, because I'm sure there are a ton of shenanigans you guys are getting into with all the multi-classing options for the Warlock, and we're not going to consider those today just because I'm sure I can't keep up with what all you guys have done. It's worth noting, though, if you guys have found some really cool things that allow you to use some of these Eldritch invocations that maybe I'm undervaluing by multiclassing, make sure to let me know down in the comments. Additionally, we all have our biases towards different spells, invocations, subclasses, etc., based on how we play the game, and that's going to be no different. I'm going to be biased a little bit towards how I play the game, so if you guys play the game differently and have discovered different uses for some of these invocations than I did, make sure to let me know down in the comments. Why do you think that the one I rated C tier should be A tier? Go ahead and let me know. If you enjoy this video or find any of the information useful, make sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button and the notification bell so you get notifications of new videos like this. Additionally, comment down below if you agree or disagree with any of my rankings on these Eldritch invocations, and I'm going to pin a comment for your ease of the different Eldritch invocations so that you can put your ranking in the comments as well. I will compile all these rankings together, and then I will show in my next ranking video how your guys' rankings of the Eldritch invocations compared to mine. And if you don't want to comment any of that or really anything else, just comment your favorite emoji, because your comments go towards engagement. It is a massive help to the channel. It helps other people find this video, and I greatly appreciate it. So with that out of the way, let's get into it and let's talk about the different Eldritch invocations inside of Baldur's Gate 3. All right, so going in alphabetical order, we have Agonizing Blast, which is going to add your charisma modifier to the damage of your Eldritch Blast, assuming that your charisma modifier isn't negative, but like, who's got a warlock with a negative charisma modifier? I mean, we all agree. Agonizing Blast is S tier. If you took the warlock, 98% of you probably took it because your plan is to Eldritch Blast everything. And even if you're like, there are classes that multi-class into warlock. I know I said we're not talking about multi-classing, but they multi-class into warlock specifically to take Eldritch Blast. It's the bread and butter of the warlock. So Agonizing Blast is a no-brainer. I would assume, unless you're doing some really weird Pact of the Blade, modding for a Hex Blade sort of thing, everyone is probably taking Agonizing Blast. I think it needs no sort of argument. Agonizing Blast is easily S tier, and then it stacks with other things like the potent robes that you get in Act 2. Agonizing Blast is crucial. It's S+ tier. It is probably the most important Eldritch invocation in this list. All right, moving on to the next one, we have the Armor of Shadows. This is going to enable your warlock to cast Mage Armor at will without expending a spell slot. Now, at a glance, this sounds pretty useful. Mage Armor is a level 1 spell that if you are not wearing any armor, you're wearing clothing is fine. You can cast Mage Armor yourself, which is going to increase your armor class by 3. You're going to have a base armor class of 13. And that's good, especially, again, the potent robes are a very common piece of equipment for the warlock to wear. You get them in Act 2. It lets you stack your charisma modifier again on top of your Eldritch Blast to do just bonkers damage. And so it would make sense that you might want Mage Armor to go with that. Since you aren't wearing armor, your armor class is going to be like 11, I think. But there's a big problem with Armor of Shadows, and it's the reason that I'm going to put it down into the D tier. And that's, it's kind of a trap, because it's a waste to take Armor of Shadows, because just have anyone else in your party cast Mage Armor on your warlock. What you can very easily do, and what I do, is I will just have a wizard as one of my hirelings that I put into the party. I cast Mage Armor on my warlock, and then I kick them out of the party, and guess what? Mage Armor still stays in effect until a long rest. I suppose the only reason you might want it is, one, if you don't have a wizard in your party that knows Mage Armor, you're not willing to get a hireling that knows Mage Armor, and if you did have a hireling that did Mage Armor and you died while on the battlefield and you were revivified, you wouldn't have Mage Armor anymore, I don't think. But yeah, Armor of Shadows is kind of a trap, because you can just have someone else cast it on you. It seems like a waste of one of your Eldritch invocations to take a spell that someone else can just straight up cast on you. It's not bad, like Mage Armor is not bad, but the Eldritch invocation can be completely replaced by something else, so it's gonna go into the D tier. Next up, we have Beast Speech. This is going to allow you to cast Speak with Animals at will. And I've gone back and forth on Beast Speech, and I'm going to put it extraordinarily tentatively at the B tier. However, it's like the lowest B- it could possibly be. It could very easily go into the C tier. And there is a very real argument, like for Armor of Shadows, to put it into the D tier if you just have someone else in your party that can cast Speak with Animals. The reason why I'm putting it into B tier is because there was so much effort put into all of the animals and to speaking with the animals inside of Baldur's Gate 3 that it doesn't necessarily feel bad to pick it up because I don't always have someone in my party that can cast Speak with Animals. I don't super often carry a druid with me. I am right now, but most of the times I don't have a druid. And if you don't pick a race that has Speak with Animals, it's very possible you may just not have that available to you at the beginning of the game. It is also worth noting that potions of Speak with Animals are pretty widespread. Again, this is one I'm not completely sold on my B tier, and I could very easily be persuaded into throwing it into the C tier. And I really would hate to put it into D tier, but again, this one feels weird to me more than almost any of the other ones. I just feel like B speech is such a fun part of the game, and I'm ranking it kind of high because it feels too important to miss out on. Like if my main character is not a warlock, there are sometimes I will forego something like Repelling Blast, Devil's Sight, something like that on will, just so I ensure that I have someone in my party that can speak with animals. It's just a fun part of the game that I don't want to miss out on, but I would completely understand if you value it lower than I did. Next up on our list is going to be Beguiling Influence, which just lets you add your proficiency bonus to deception and persuasion checks. I'm gonna be honest, I am putting this in the C tier because I can, I guess, see a reason why you might want this if your player character is going to be a warlock and you didn't pick a background that has proficiency in deception or persuasion. But on the whole, I feel like this is a pretty weak Eldritch Invocation. It seems pretty easy to get around needing to take this, and it feels bad to take an invocation for that unless you're really being roleplay heavy with your character and you're not picking a background specifically because of the proficiencies you want and because it fits the background of your character, which is completely fine. Alternatively, instead of doing that, I am likely to just take the actor feat instead because my charisma is already going to be a 17. Take actor, you get a +1 to charisma, gets me up to that nice +4 modifier, and then my proficiency bonus is doubled for deception checks and performance, but I'm not doing performance with my warlock. So Beguiling Influence, let me know if you value this higher, but I'm putting it at the C tier. All right, next up on the list, we have Devil's Sight. Devil's Sight is going to allow you to see normally in darkness, both non-magical and magical sight, up to a distance of 24 meters or 80 feet. For me, I value this one at S tier, guys. Devil's Sight is crucial for how I play a warlock. I can probably see that this would be valued a lot lower if you're doing some sort of like Pact of the Blade melee, have no desire to do Eldritch Blast or stay back as a caster. I can see a rationale for not doing Devil's Sight pretty high, but I don't know. I guess I don't know how a majority of people play the Warlock, but I usually play the Warlock more as a caster and not as a frontliner because they're usually squishier, they don't have the higher armor class, and it's so convenient to either just cast darkness on yourself and then hide in the darkness and just Eldritch Blast out of it without having to worry about walking out of it, casting it, and walking back in. Or better yet, cast Hunger of Hadar somewhere, have your bard with magical secrets or have a druid with Circle of Land, something like that, cast darkness on you so that then you can just Eldritch Blast people into a Hunger of Hadar or into some other sort of hazard on the field. But for me, Devil's Sight is just crucial because what really feels bad is if you have to move outside of darkness, then you run out of movement. Or maybe there are people like you get a lot, like I'm thinking in Act 2 when you attack Moonrise Towers and you have all of those Harpers that are kind of lined up and it can be hard to find a path outside of the darkness sometimes. So being able to stay in darkness, fire your Eldritch Blast out of there, it's a good way to keep your squishy warlock safe. And for me, Devil's Sight, easily S tier. All right, next up we have Fiendish Vigor. Fiendish Vigor allows the warlock to cast the False Life spell on themselves at will without expending a spell slot. False Life is a level 1 necromancy spell that allows you to give yourself 7 temporary hit points. And I'm interested to know how you guys rate this one. I'm going to put Fiendish Vigor at the S tier. Like the idea that I can go into every single combat encounter in the entire game with Fiendish Vigor and just start out with 7 temporary hit points, that's phenomenal. Like I get that 7 temporary hit points aren't a lot, but that could potentially be the difference between life and death, honestly. And Fiendish Vigor, very differently from Armor of Shadows, you can't have someone else casting False Life on you. You have to cast it on yourself. So again, just the fact that with this Eldritch Invocation, you can go into every combat encounter as long as you remember to cast it on yourself before going in with 7 temporary hit points. I mean, free hit points, I'm not gonna complain about it. I always take this Eldritch Invocation. I'm a big fan of it. Let me know if you guys disagree. I can understand people like 7 hit points, not a ton to write home about, but I'm not gonna turn down free hit points. Next up, we have one of my favorite Eldritch Invocations, and that is going to be the Mask of Many Faces. The Mask of Many Faces enables your character to cast Disguise Self at will. Now, I say that the Mask of Many Faces is one of my favorite Eldritch Invocations, and that's true in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. In 5th edition, in the hands of a crafty player, you can do some really, really fun things with the Mask of Many Faces and the ability to disguise yourself at will and become whoever you want to be. It makes you a phenomenal infiltrator for your party. However, the use cases within Baldur's Gate 3, at least in my experience, are substantially less than they are in 5th edition. There are still bonuses to be had from using Disguise Self. You can get the racial benefits from some different kinds of weapons. I'm thinking the Silver Sword of the Astral Plane or any of the Githyanki specific weapons. If you decide that you want to Disguise Self and become a Githyanki, you get those racial bonuses with those weapons. You also get the unique racial interactions when dialogue whenever you're shapeshifted. And then additionally, you can use it to kind of weasel yourself out of trouble if you're being a fugitive and you're being caught and put in jail. But as much as it pains me for what I have experienced, at least within the game, I really hate this because in 5e, I would probably put this at B or A tier, but inside of Baldur's Gate, I'm going to have to put it at like C tier. The best use that I have for using the Mask of Many Faces is to enable me to talk to the dead so that whenever I kill someone, I can just talk to the dead. It is worth noting I am not putting it at D tier because I am aware that the Mask of the Shapeshifter completely negates the need for this Eldritch Invocation because you can cast Disguise Self on yourself with the Mask of the Shapeshifter. However, you do have to have the deluxe edition of the game to have the Mask of the Shapeshifter, and I don't feel like that's fair to kick it down to D tier because there's an item that can do it because that item was locked behind a paywall. So Mask of Many Faces hurts me, but I'm gonna put it at C tier. Next up, we have One with the Shadows. And when you are in an area of dim light or darkness, you can use your action to become invisible. And invisible is going to end early if you move, attack, cast a spell, take an action, or take damage. Now, this is one that I have to assume there are shenanigans that you can do if you multi-class, and I'm going to need maybe your guys' guidance on what interesting things you were able to do with One with the Shadows. I have to put this, I'm tempted to throw this into D tier. I am tentatively going to put it into C tier, hoping someone can convince me that maybe it's higher. The fact that you can't even move after you become invisible, I just have not found a use for One with the Shadows. Because your enemies in combat are going to be able to just walk up to where you went invisible and then cast Detect Presence and just find you. If it let you cast normal invisibility or like the invisibility that the Shadow Monk has where you stay invisible as long as you are in a heavily obscured area, then it would definitely rank so much higher. But the fact that there are so many caveats to how this invisibility ends and ends early. I am putting it currently into C- tier, potentially D tier. And I am very interested from you guys. Let me know down in the comments if you have found a solid use for One with the Shadows. Also, I really apologize because I lied to you guys. I said that I was going in alphabetical order, and I think until now I did. But I can see on my list it's about to go out of alphabetical order, so sorry about that. But next up, we have Repelling Blast. Repelling Blast is a toggleable feature, toggleable feature for your Eldritch Blast that enables you to knock a creature back 4.5 meters or 15 feet. This is really nice, especially at higher levels of Eldritch Blast when you get different tendrils of your Eldritch Blast and you can knock back multiple different targets. It's worth noting though that if you do all of your tendrils on one target, you don't get to stack the 4.5 meters. It only goes back 4.5 meters. Repelling Blast is once again the bread and butter of the Blaster Warlock that uses Eldritch Blast and just tries to wreck people's lives by knocking them back with Agonizing Blast and Repelling Blast into like a Hunger of Hadar or a Spike Growth or a Cloud of Daggers. Like for me, this is what the Warlock is all about. Repelling Blast is absolutely, in my opinion, S tier. If you are only using Repelling Blast to knock people off of the side of cliffs and you're like, oh, this is like D tier because then I don't get to get all of the fancy loot because they went off a cliff. Try knocking people back into your Hunger Pit or use it to hit people into different hazards on the battlefield and not necessarily just off the side of a cliff. And it does so many great things. It's also nice if someone's like up on top of like an awning or on a roof or on top of like some sort of elevated position. And then you can just boop, drop them off and they fall down to the ground and they take falling damage too, but they don't knock off the side of like a cliff. So nice. So huge fan, Repelling Blast. Hopefully no argument here, S tier. Next on our list, we are going to have the Thief of the Five Fates. That is going to enable your Warlock to cast Bane using a Warlock spell slot. Now, Bane is going to be the antithesis to Bless, which is going to inflict a 1d4 penalty on your opponent's attack rolls and saving throws. Now, don't get me wrong, Bane is good, but the Thief of Five Fates probably is not. Because here's my thing, is Bane is probably not what you want your Warlock to be concentrating on in battle. Like so many of the spells that your Warlock is going to want to cast are concentration spells, and since Bane requires concentration, that is going to be fighting for Hunger of Hadar, Darkness, Dominate Monster, Banishment, hell, Slow. Like all of those are all concentration spells, and so when I have to ask myself, do I want to cast Hunger of Hadar and start Eldritch blasting people into it, or do I want to cast Bane? I mean, those are probably for different scenarios, but in general, I'm probably not going to want to cast Bane, at least not with my Warlock, considering I'm only going to have 2 spell slots for most of the game. That's not, in my opinion, the best use of your Warlock spell slot, maybe at an early level, but at an early level, I'm wanting Agonizing Blast and Repelling Blast probably. I would much rather use my Cleric or my Bard to cast Bane rather than my Warlock. So for that reason, because it's not bad, it's not a trap, but I don't feel like it is the proper use of your Warlock, I'm going to put the Thief of Five Fates at C tier. Next up, we're going to have the Sign of Ill Omen. This is going to allow you to cast Bestow Curse using a Warlock spell slot. Now, the Sign of Ill Omen, I am going to put at the C tier, and here is why. It's not a trap. Bestow Curse is a good spell. Inflicting disadvantage on attack rolls or saving throws or ability checks against an enemy is a great thing to have. However, there are a couple of things that just make it not really fitting for your Warlock to be the one casting it. First off, it has a range of 5 feet or 1.5 meters as a touch spell. And again, your Warlock is traditionally not going to be your front liner. You don't want your Warlock in melee range of anybody. Yes, you have your Pact of the Blade users, and maybe Bestow Curse, this is where you want Bestow Curses on your Pact of the Blade users who are going to be out there in melee range with their Pact weapon. But even then, if you're using your Pact of the Blade Warlock, you're probably attacking someone that's like a little bit squishier, like you're going after a mage or something. Maybe you're going up against the big bad evil guy and you have some massive plan on how you're going to survive taking a couple of hits from him, but I just don't see a lot of great scenarios where you're going to be up just in their grill casting Bestow Curse and that going well for you. The other problem is that it doesn't really take advantage of the fact that Warlock spell slots are cast at the highest possible spell slot. Because whenever you upcast Bestow Curse, you are extending its duration by 10 additional turns. However, how often are your battles going past 10 turns anyway? I just don't see this really being a great fit for the Warlock. It's not bad, it's just I don't think that I would want to take it for those reasons, and so I'm going to put it also at the C tier. It's not a trap, but it's probably not the best use of your invocations. Next up, we have Mire of the Mind, and this one I have a feeling people are going to get upset about. Which one? Don't get upset, like this is my opinion. Just tell me why you disagree with me. It's okay if we have differences of opinions, but Mire of the Mind is going to enable you to cast Slow as a Warlock spell slot. Slow, phenomenal spell. Big fan of Slow. And I am going to put Mire of the Mind in the B tier for 2 reasons. The biggest reason I am putting it at the B tier is because if you are playing as a Great Old One Warlock, you just get Slow. Like that is one of your spells in your spell list. So unless you just have all of these other spells you would rather have and it doesn't make sense for you to have Slow, which I have not personally had that experience with 1/3 of warlocks out there just should never take Mire of the Mind because you can just take the slow spell instead. My other reason is because once again, you just have so many different spells that require your concentration. And slow may not be the one that you want your warlock casting. It's a phenomenal spell. I love slow, but I might not want my warlock to be the one casting that. I want my warlock usually casting one of Darkness or Hunger of Hadar. However, I completely acknowledge that there are situations where slow is the better answer over something like Hunger of Hadar. So almost exclusively for the reason that 1/3 of warlocks in Baldur's Gate 3 just get slow on their spell list, I'm putting it Mire of the Mind at the B tier. If slow was not anywhere in the warlock spell slot, and the only way you could get slow was with the Mire of the Mind Eldritch Invocation, it would be A tier, maybe S tier. Next up on our list, we have the Book of Ancient Secrets. And if there was ever going to be a trap Eldritch Invocation, we have now found it. The Book of Ancient Secrets is only available to you if you picked the Pact of the Tome. And it allows you to put 3 new spells into your Grimoire of Shadows. It allows you to add Ray of Sickness, Chromatic Orb, and Silence. You can cast them once per long rest without expending a spell slot. Let's talk about all the reasons why this is garbage, shall we? Number 1, these do not upcast at all. You get Ray of Sickness at first level, and you get Chromatic Orb at first level. In Silence, you get Silence, right? Silence is a great spell. The other two, not so much. So you don't get to upcast them. They're dealing mediocre damage at best. So instead of casting Ray of Sickness or Chromatic Orb, I'm just going to cast Eldritch Blast with Agonizing Blast. It's just gonna be better. And if you're out there saying, oh, but there are different parts of the game where Chromatic Orb and Ray of Sickness aren't bad, you don't get the Book of Ancient Secrets until you are over level 7. You have 2 tendrils of Eldritch Blast by then. Why? The Book of Ancient Secrets in 5th edition is not bad. In 5th edition, I believe that the Book of Ancient Secrets enables you to add any ritual spells from any spell list into your Grimoire of Shadows that you can cast as a ritual spell, but not as a non-ritual spell at will. That, not bad. But I don't know why. I don't know. If you have found some reason why this is not a trap, please tell me. But looking at this and having taken it before, I took it and I was like, oh, I bet these upcast. And I'm like, no, these are just garbage. And yeah, you get Silence. Silence is a great spell. But again, things I want my Warlock concentrating on, probably not Silence. That's why I have a Cleric. The Cleric is going to cast Silence. So really, you're taking the Book of Ancient Secrets just to get the Silence spell. And for me, I'm sorry, not worth it. I have Clerics for that. So Book of Ancient Secrets, to me, is a trap. It's going in D tier. The next Eldritch Invocation on our list is going to be Dreadful Word. The Dreadful Word Eldritch Invocation is going to allow you to cast Confusion using a Warlock spell slot. If you haven't noticed, our A tier is looking pretty empty, and Dreadful Word is going to take our very first A tier slot. I can already feel people's anger bubbling that I have put Confusion above slow. Hear me out on my rationale. Maybe you still disagree with it. Mire of the Mind gives you slow, which is available to 1/3 of warlocks. Dreadful Word gives you access to Confusion, which is not available to any warlocks. This is the only way you can gain access to the Confusion spell. Additionally, Dreadful Word and using Confusion actually takes advantage of the fact that your Warlock spell slots are going to scale and go up and cast at max level because your area of effect for Confusion is going to increase, whereas with slow, you gain no advantages for upcasting it. So because of its uniqueness to the Warlock class by only being available from an Eldritch Invocation, because of the fact that it does have very nice effects that it causes your enemies to wander around, attack aimlessly, maybe just skip their entire turn, and because it actually takes advantage of one of the Warlock's key features in that they cast spells at the maximum possible spell slot, I'm putting Dreadful Word at the A tier, just slightly above Mire of the Mind for those reasons. Our next Eldritch Invocation is going to be the Sculptor of Flesh. And Sculptor of Flesh is going to enable you to cast Polymorph as a Warlock spell. Now, first off, I'm gonna say, I love the idea of Polymorph. I love that you can turn enemies into a chicken. Like, that's a bunch of fun. That's great. That's a great part of Baldur's Gate 3. However, and I can, once again, already feel the anger just pouring from my computer, I'm gonna put Sculptor of Flesh at the B tier, and here is why. I have a few problems with your Warlock being the one casting Polymorph. One of them being that again, Polymorph is a touch spell. Similar to that of Curse, you have to be within melee range, which typically your Warlock does not want to be the one on the front line within melee range. Now, maybe if you're doing some great cross-class shenanigans where you've gone and you've taken a couple of points of Paladin or a couple of points of Fighter and you've got heavy armor proficiency and you're doing crazy things like that, then your Warlock is a frontliner and you're casting Polymorph, like, okay, different. But if you're playing a traditional 12th level Warlock, your Warlock probably doesn't want to be on the front lines trying to polymorph an important bad guy. Additionally, Polymorph is a single target spell. It has no benefits to upcasting, and it requires your concentration. So we are now asking the Warlock to be within melee range, concentrating on a spell, and concentrating on a spell that is only affecting one person. I love Polymorph. If Polymorph in Baldur's Gate 3 was like 5th edition, where you could cast Polymorph on your allies and basically wild shape them into a T-Rex, okay, great. This is S tier, no doubt, but because you can only use it on enemies, rather because its only useful effect is on enemies to turn them into a chicken, I have to put it at B tier. It's a good spell, it is a useful spell, but I don't think it is one that your Warlock probably should be casting. Next up, we have Minions of Chaos. Minions of Chaos is going to enable your Warlock to cast Conjure Elemental using a Warlock spell slot. I love Minions of Chaos. Minions of Chaos is going into S tier for a couple of reasons. Number one, it allows you to conjure an elemental, which is going to help you deal damage. It's great. Having more people is more good. And this is one of, is this the only one? Hold on. Out of the spells that require you to use a Warlock spell slot, this is the only one that does not require your concentration, meaning that your Warlock is now gaining access to a great 5th level spell that is not concentration, that is not available to the Warlock by any other means. It is giving you additional battlefield control in the sense of adding more numbers to your side, and you are still able to concentrate on something like Darkness, Hunger of Hadar, some other concentration-based spell, Slow, Bestow Curse, any of these other ones that we have from our Eldritch Invocations. That is huge. So for all of these things, I am going to put Minions of Chaos at the S tier. Next up, we have Otherworldly Leap, and you are able to now learn the ritual spell Enhance Leap without expending a spell slot at 9th level or higher. Like, okay, maybe this isn't a trap if this is available to you at the beginning of the game. But I gotta ask, has anyone ever taken Otherworldly Leap at 9th level or higher to gain Enhanced Leap? Like, why? You could go partial Ceramorphosis and just fly places. Just have a wizard cast Grant Flight. Have a wizard cast Enhanced Leap on you. Like, it's a trap, right? I don't understand why Otherworldly Leap is even in here. So for me, Otherworldly Leap easily going into the D tier. Just why? Someone tell me in the comments why. Someone tell me I am open. If you have a great reason why Otherworldly Leap deserves anything other than D tier, I am happy to listen to it. I mean, I get it's a ritual spell. That's the only thing that I can take from it. Like, ritual spells always knock things up a tier. Like, anytime a spell can be cast as a ritual or affect someone for a long rest without needing that person to be in your party, that almost always kicks it up a tier for me. But I just don't see a reason why at 9th level or higher, I am taking Enhanced Leap when I have all of these other Eldritch Invocations that we've talked about that we have ranked higher. I'm putting it at D tier. Next up, we have Whispers of the Grave, which is going to enable you to cast Speak with the Dead at will. This feels like a trap because you get it again at 9th plus level, for a spell that you get an amulet to cast at the beginning of the game. And if you decided you wanted to read the Necromancy of Thay and you saved on all of the saving throws, you just get Speak with the Dead forever for free. So if someone wants to tell me, again, why Whispers of the Grave also isn't a trap, I am happy to entertain that. But for me right now, like it's so easily replaced with so many other things. Like I get it doesn't expend a spell slot. It also doesn't expend a spell slot if I use it from the amulet, or if I use it from reading the Necromancy of Thay, or if I just have anyone else cast it. So for me, Whispers of the Grave seems like an absolute waste of an Eldritch Invocation. Again, unless, and this goes for all of these, unless there is a role-playing reason why your character should be speaking with the dead, why this needs to be how they get this ability. If there's a role-playing purpose for it, you guys know, always for it. Whispers of the Grave is a trap. I'm sorry. I'm putting it at D tier. Tell me if you disagree. Finally, we get to the Lifedrinker Eldritch Invocation, which is available at 12th level for your Warlock. This is going to enable you to add your Charisma modifier to the damage of your melee weapon attacks in the form of necrotic damage. This is what our Pact of the Blade Warlocks have been just rubbing their hands together waiting for. Lifedrinker, great. You just get to add an extra 4 or 5, whatever your Charisma bonus is, to your damage. That's going to be great. You stack that on top of all of the other bonuses you can get from equipment and stuff like that. And if you are doing like the Mask of Many Faces and you change yourself to be a Githyanki, and then you get all the Githyanki bonuses from like a weapon, you can get weapons that are doing absolutely bonkers damage. But don't hate me. I am going to put Lifedrinker in the A tier, not the S tier. Hear me out as to why. If you are going to say, how are you not putting it at S tier? It is an S tier Eldritch Invocation. You're a madman. I am going to guess that your Warlock you play is always the Pact of the Blade. I cannot see a reason why any Warlock who is a blaster, who is not doing Pact of the Blade, if you were doing Pact of the Chain, or if you were doing Pact of the Tome, if you are not doing the Fiend and are not doing the Pact of the Blade, you probably will not see the bonuses of Lifedrinker, because you're just never going to use your melee weapon. You are always Eldritch Blasting or doing you're always Eldritch Blasting, let's be honest. But for those people that are doing melee damage, that are doing the Pact of the Fiend, or that have the Fiend as their patron, that are doing the Pact of the Blade, that are just doing insane amounts of damage with just an absurd pact weapon, Lifedrinker is S+ tier, no doubt. But because Lifedrinker does not apply to every single Warlock, because not every single Warlock is probably going to want Lifedrinker. Every single Warlock should want Agonizing Blast. Every single Warlock should want Repelling Blast, because they're always, like, Eldritch Blast is never a bad thing to do. Minions of Chaos, every Warlock. No Warlock is going to want to turn down the ability to conjure another ally to fight on your side. But there are Warlocks that will not find any bonuses to their melee weapon attacks. And for that reason, because it is not something that all Warlocks are going to enjoy, I am putting it at A tier. All right, so that takes us through every single Eldritch Invocation inside of Baldur's Gate 3. Let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Again, I'm going to put a template down there. Feel free to copy and paste it and throw your rankings for the different Eldritch Invocations in the comments, and I will analyze those and I will report back on your guys' rankings versus my rankings in my next rankings video that I make. For those of you that want the graphic, here's the graphic of all of the different Eldritch Invocations and their rankings. They are not necessarily in order of hierarchy within the tier itself, but this is the tier list. Guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to hit the like button. It makes me feel good to know that I'm providing you guys with a little bit of value. It really just kind of keeps me going on occasion to keep making videos, so I appreciate the likes. And if for some reason you enjoy this video or listening to me talk, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you get notification of new videos like this. Comment down below about Eldritch Invocations. If you have nothing to say, just comment your favorite emoji because it goes towards engagement. It is a massive help to the video, massive help to the channel. It helps other people find this video, and I greatly appreciate your guys' engagement. Guys, thank you so much. Good luck serving your patron inside of Baldur's Gate 3, and we will see you guys in the next video. Make sure to click up here if you want to see a rankings video for all the cantrips inside of Baldur's Gate 3. You can click up here if you want to subscribe to the channel, and then over here if you just want to see my different playlist for Baldur's Gate 3. Have a great day, guys, and we will see you in a later video.